Greetings, John Armstrong here, Antigua Winds artist. In this video, I'm going to talk about the differences to me between the cryogenically treated Pro 1 tenor saxophone and the non-cryogenically treated Pro 1 tenor saxophone. In order to dig into the differences, I recorded myself playing a chorus of a standard on each horn, and you'll hear that. And then I even did some frequency analysis on each instrument so we can dig in a little bit into what's going on with the timbral differences between the instruments. So both horns sound great, feel great, they're excellent, really ergonomically they feel very comfortable. The differences for me as a player, so I played the untreated one for well over a year or two since I first started with Antigua, and I recently started playing the cryogenically treated instrument about 3 months ago, and I've been playing it consistently ever since. And what I find is the cryogenic one has a little more pop. It's a little bit more focused of a sound. It's a little stronger, a little more resonant, and a little brighter as well. And the non-cryogenically treated instrument, it's a little mellower, a little smoother, a little rounder on the edges of the sound. And for me as a player, what's interesting about that is they both lend themselves to different types of playing. When I have the cryogenic frozen instrument in my hands, I play a little stronger. I feel like I take a few more risks as a player, get myself into trouble maybe more with the cryogenic instrument. And I can really scream, I can really push. Now, the non-cryogenic instrument, it can still stay on top of a band. I feel like I can go into any battle with the non-cryogenic instrument, but it's a little smoother, which allows me to do some more subtle things, some more smoother, cooler ideas, kind of hang out on one note and do some timbral shifts. So now we're going to dig into the frequency analysis. So we'll hop onto the computer and I'll talk about some of the things that I see with the data, if you will, with the frequency analysis. Welcome to my computer. What we have here is I played and recorded a low concert E flat on the cryogenically treated Pro 1 saxophone and the non-cryogenically treated Pro 1 saxophone. And this is with a very full tone. I played these two notes. And then what we're going to bring up is this plugin. It's a FabFilter Pro Q3. It's an EQ plugin that's meant to adjust frequencies and the decibels of certain frequency bands in post-production when you're mixing and mastering. For our purposes, it has this very cool feature where you can freeze frequency analysis of a note, and then we can look at it and talk about it. So here is the cryogenically frozen E flat. Perfect. See how that's frozen like that? Now we will go to the non-cryogenically frozen, I guess it's frozen, non-cryogenically treated saxophone. Okay, so let's talk about what we see here. Right off the bat, one thing I notice is that and here, let me get a little annotation tool. One thing I notice is that this note here, this is the fundamental pitch, and the non-cryogenically frozen instrument is a little bit louder than this one. You know, if you look, this peak doesn't quite get to the -3 decibels like this one does. So if anything, I'm playing the non-cryogenically frozen instrument a little bit louder than the cryogenically frozen instrument. Now, the note I'm playing right here is at about 156. That's the concert low E flat. And so that's my fundamental. So that's my root, essentially. And the way the overtone series works, this is an octave above. That's the root. This is the fifth, the third partial, right? and then this is my next root. So another way to think about this is the first octave, the second octave, and then the third octave starts here. And the third octave goes root, third, fifth, seventh. So this is my third octave, and then this here is my fourth octave. And that goes, and that's all I really want to talk about. So here, we'll do it here. 1, that's my second octave, which consists of the root and the fifth. My third octave starts here, root, third, fifth, seventh. And then my fourth octave starts right there on that note and continues on. Okay, so here's why that's important. Right here, in my third octave, which is technically my fifth partial, root, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. This is my fifth partial inside of the third octave. I understand there's a lot of numbers being thrown around. It's the major third is how that partial works. And if you can see, it's up there right about -1, whereas this guy's down here about -3. So we're talking about a 1.5, if not a 2 decibel difference, where the cryogenically frozen instrument is brighter. That fifth partial in the third octave is brighter than the non-cryogenically frozen instrument, even though the note itself, the fundamental pitch, was played softer than the fundamental pitch on the non-cryogenically frozen. So I think I played a slightly louder dynamic level on the non-cryogenically frozen instrument, yet I still have a louder fifth partial in the third octave on the cryogenic. And I think you can hear that in the tone. It's a brighter tone. It's a more intense sound, right? A more resonant sound. And this is what we mean when we say resonance, is we're literally talking about these overtones. Another thing I notice is right here in that fourth octave, that start of the fourth octave is just louder here. You know, this one's barely over 0 dB. This one clears 0 dB by a fair bit. We're talking about another maybe 1 dB difference. And then look at this guy right here. This is the second note of the fourth octave. That one's pretty strong. That's all the way up there above +3 dB. This one doesn't quite get there. And this entire fourth octave of my overtones on the non-cryogenically frozen instrument is just not as strong as this one. Here's this partial here. The third note of the fourth octave is actually an octave above this one. It's also a major third, an octave up. That's pretty strong. We almost get to 0 dB here, and this one still, there's a gap there. So I think that's what we're seeing. Without getting too much into the fine tuning, we just have this real strong fourth octave of our tone. Everything out here is kind of noise, but you still have a pretty significant peak here and here. And you can see that we have peaks on the non-cryogenically treated instrument, but they're just not as significant as these two here. And we're in like the fifth, sixth octave at this point, or probably the fifth octave at this point. And then you have this little tail, and the air of the sound is just, there's a more substantial air, which is like the very, very high frequencies, than there is here, right? Even that little peak at 15 kilohertz as opposed to 14 kilohertz. You can just see how much stronger that is. And I think we notice that in the sound. And so here's like kind of a visual representation of what we're already hearing with the notes themselves. Thank you so much to Antigua for helping me make this video. And yeah, I hope you enjoy your instruments, and please reach out if you have any questions or comment there on the YouTube. Take care.